Hi everybody, this is Scott Sharp with Fretboard Toolbox, and today we're going to look at the three big ideas you need to know in the key of G major. That's which chords make up the key, what chords sound cool together, and what are the soloing scales you can use in the key. Let's get started and I'll show you how it works. Today we're going to use the Fretboard Toolbox Essential Mandolin book, and we will use the key of G major. My essential books have the keys of G, A, C, D, and E. And then we'll also be using something from my free tools. So if you go to 3 Big Ways to Improve, and then you click on this sheet here, this is called the Mastering Keys Checklist. This will come up, and it has the keys of C, G, D, A, and E. And so we'll go to the key of G today. And the first big idea is what chords sound cool together. And that's what this whole first part of the Fretboard Toolbox shows you. So the chords in the key of G that sound really cool, there's 3 main major chords called the 1 chord G major, the 4 chord C major, and the 5 chord D major. And then there's 3 minor keys. A minor's the 2 chord, B minor's the 3 chord, and E minor's the 6 chord. And we're going to ignore this flat 7 chord today. So just these 6 main chords. And then what Toolbox does is it shows you which notes make up those chords. So G major's always made of G, B, and D, C major's always C, E, G, and D major is D, F sharp, and A. So here's those 6 chords on the checklist, and they're Roman numerals. Learning those Roman numerals is huge. And then I want you to rate yourself on all of those, from noper, which means you can't do it, to yepper is like easy breezy. So the second big idea is going to be which chords sound cool together. And so here's some big chord progressions, and I'll go through each of these today. And then the third big idea is going to be soloing scales. So the soloing scales are the major scale and the major pentatonic scale. And I'll show you how to see those here on the fretboard. But to get started with the chords here, the first chord is G major, and the first G major you learned probably looks like this. And maybe no one told you why, and it's because you're playing just G, B, and D notes. So you can leave G and D open. Here's the nut, and here's the nut on your fretboard. And then you can play the 2nd fret B and the 3rd fret G. You can also play G major with this big position here. That's also G major because it's got D, G, B, and G. You can play a B, G, D right here. So that's going to be 4, 5, 5. So once you can see those positions all up the fretboard, cool stuff starts to open up. So that's your 1 chord. Your 4 chord is C major, made of the notes C, E, and G. So the first C major you learned probably looks like this. And that's G, E, C, E. But I can also bar this G if I can grab it. I can play a C major like this. That's playing C, E, C. I can play all up here. That's C, G, E, C. So again, seeing those positions up the fretboard, and watch how they, it's all the same order of positions going up for all the chords. And then the 5 chord is a D major, made of the notes D, F sharp, and A. So the first D you learned probably looks like this. That's A, D, A, F sharp, A, D, A, F sharp. You can play this. So that's A, F sharp, D. You can play this. That's D, F sharp, D. And again, seeing those positions, super helpful. So that's your 1, 4, and 5 chords. Then for your 2, 3, and 6 chords, your 2 chord is an A minor, made of the notes A, C, and E. So I can play A minor like this. That's A, E, C, A. I can play 7s, or I can play 9, 7, 7, and then an 8 if I can grab that. So 9, 7, 7, 8. So again, tons of positions that you can find. So just see those shapes, and the minors repeat in the exact same way as the majors, just a little bit different shapes. So that's my 2 chord. My 3 chord is a B minor. So it's all those A minor shapes scooted up 2 frets. So here's a B minor, made of B, D, and F sharp notes. B, F sharp, D, B. And then for my E minor chord, I can play like this. That's B, E, B, G. I can play B, G, E right here. So that's 4, 5, 7. And on that chord, if I leave this first string open, that's okay because it's part of the chord. It's an E, G, or B note. So that's your 6 main chords. So you can rate yourself on those. And then for chord progressions, those are all shown in the Fretboard Toolbox books as well, under some major chord progressions here. So learn to play a G, D, G. Like, that's called a 1, 5, 1. 1, 5, 1. Or I can play a 1, 4, 5. That's like the backbone of rock and bluegrass and country and reggae, all sorts of stuff. So 1, 4, 5, 1. Or a 1, 5, 4, 1, 6, 4, 5. So practice those. And when you're working on those chord progressions, go to the Fretboard Toolbox website, go to Tracks and Tab, and click on 200 free jam tracks. And then I play all of those chord progressions on guitar for all these different keys. And so tons and tons of the most common keys. And you can click on that, and you can play along with me. Playing all of those chord progressions, and you can use the same thing for soloing scales and all sorts of stuff. Like, that's a really fun laboratory to play in to get those chord progressions down. So I want you to play through those progressions and rate yourself on them and see which ones you can hit, because when you know those chord progressions, figuring out songs on the fly is way easier. It was kind of like my holy grail to be able to just start playing along with the song, but all the chords just felt random to me. Like, okay, it goes G and then an E minor all of a sudden, and then a C major, and then D major. Okay, but now I know that playing G, E minor, C major, D major is a 1, 6, 4, 5, and I can play a 1, 6, 4, 5 in any key. So big idea 2, your chord progressions, and then big idea 3 are your soloing scales. And so the cool part about the soloing scales is with the toolbox, all of the notes in white boxes are going to be your major scale notes, and all of the underlined notes are going to be your major pentatonic notes. So the only difference between major and major pentatonic, everything in white going across here is major. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. These 2 italicized notes are bluesy notes, so we're skipping those today. And then if you do just the underlined notes, you're going to play the 1 note, the 2 note, and the 3 note in both scales. For the major pentatonic, you're going to skip the 4, you'll play 5 and 6, and then you'll skip the 7. That's it. So major pentatonic is just a major scale, taking out the 4th note and the 7th note. So to be able to see those, I can see them easier on my complete edition. You can see them here too, all those underlined notes, but let me pull up a complete edition here. So on my Fretboard Toolbox Complete Editions, those don't have the colored circles, but it has all those soloing scales for all your major keys, all your relative minor keys, and all your blues keys. So if I click on the G major here for the Complete Edition, it's all the same thing, those 6 main chords, the notes that make up the chords I can see here. The major scale notes are all in white boxes, and the underlined notes are all major pentatonic. Chord progressions are all the same, and then the soloing scales are just a little easier to see for me without those colored circles. So to play G to G here in the major scale, I'm going to play G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, like this. And then I could play this G to this G like this. And learning those major scale notes, mess around with the order. So that's your major scale, and then you can see those all up and down the fretboard. So if you just pause here, you can find those positions, find how to go from G to G in all sorts of different places. And then remember, with the complete editions, you can see those in every single key. And then for the major pentatonic, I just want the underline notes. So G to G would be G, A, B, skip the C, D, E, skip the F sharp, back to G, like this. G, A, B, D, E, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then back to the root. And then to go from this G to this G, major pentatonic, G, A, B, D, E, G. And that's it. That's the three big ideas. So you want to know what chords sound cool together, which chords sound cool, and learn those Roman numerals. It pays off a ton. And it really helps to learn what notes make up the chords. And then after a while, you're just playing shapes. You're not thinking about all those notes. But when you can build it and understand it, it'll open up a million different options for you. And then learn the big idea two, what chords sound good together. And these more major chord progressions have some chords in italics. Those are chords that break the rules, like playing a flat 7 here, or playing the 2 chord as a major chord instead of a minor, going from here's a 3 major chord or a 4 minor chord. So there's all sorts of rules to break, but learn those rules first and get those ingrained in your head. And then for big idea 3, getting those soloing scales down. So learn to play the G major and learn to play the G major pentatonic. And when you're playing those, throw on these jam tracks here and start listening to what those sound like. Those scales sound like over these chord progressions. And I'll put out a video later on how to mess around with those and improvise over those different chord progressions. But that's really the whole big story. So with fretboard toolboxes, if you understand kind of how those work, if you understand how one works, then you understand them for all these different instruments. So today we were messing around on the mandolin, and the biggest question I get asked is essential versus complete books. So you can read all about those and watch a video explaining those differences. You can read about my print versus ebook options. You can see all my mandolin videos or all the other instrument videos by picking a different instrument. And then if you click look inside on any of my books, you get all of the key of G major pages and all of the instructions for free. So you can mess around with them and see if you find it useful. And if you do, then you can go to town and pick one up and or order one online and I'll mail it to your house, or you can download it after purchasing for one of the ebooks. And if it doesn't help you, then you're not out any money and you can still mess around with those G major pages. There's also tons of cool stuff to poke around with here, so spend some time looking at all these free tools and see if you can find some stuff that might help you out. And I've got those tracks and tabs, and I've got books on picking melodies and fiddle tunes and theory by hand book that lets you see how to build all the chords and scales on one hand. I do online lessons. So lots of stuff to check out, and I appreciate you stopping by today, and I'll be back on more Fretboard Fridays with more videos on more of my favorite instruments.